Hello, it is that crazy straw guy back at it again in my shoe closet. Today we're going to be looking at the Prank Kids archetype. Listen, I know I said I want to do the mayakashi archetype, but there's two very solid reasons why I decided to switch over to Prank Kids in the last day. You see, mayakashis are kind of linear in what they play, basically just another synchro archetype, while Prank Kids are a bit more interesting since they focus on fusion and link, which I think is a combination that hasn't been used in an archetype since the set has been released. Of course, the Ignister set does use literally all of the extra deck monsters, basically, including Link, but, I don't have Ignisters. And secondly, I don't have one of the Synchro monsters for the mayakashi set. I don't really feel like, going over another set where I'm going to be showing you my hand and saying it's a card. I know I did it for the Smorg archetype, but that was different. Nobody really cared about that one. Anyways, we just go right into the archetype, starting off with the main deck monsters. We have three different attribute type, status, and level monsters, which are all Prank Kids. We have Lampsies, Fansies, and Dropsies. All of them have the effect that if they are sent to the graveyard for the material of a Link Prank Kids or a Fusion Prank Kids monster, they have unique effects, and then they all special summon a different Prank Kid from the deck in defense position. Dropsies heals you for 1,000, Fansies is a Foolish Burial for the archetype, which is pretty interesting because mostly wind type monsters are backward removal, and Lampsies burns your opponent for 500. Now what's pretty interesting is that they all have different attributes and types. For example, Prank Kids Dropsies is a level 2 Aqua monster, meaning you can special summon a very greasy toad on your side of the field. I'll not say his name. And Fansies is a Thunder type monster, meaning it's splashable with the Thunder Dragon engine, I guess. And Lampsies is just there. He's an angry boy. Anyways, these are all the cards that mostly are used for all of your plays that help you recur and basically give you the big idea of what Prank Kids are. A constantly recovering archetype. I am moving on to the spells and traps of the archetype. We have Prank Kids Place, which is the field spell. When it's activated, it adds a Prank Kids monster from the deck to the hand. And basically, whenever a Prank Kids fusion monster is fusion summoned, all monsters you control gain 500 attack and defense. And at the same time, when you link summon a Prank Kids monster, all monsters your opponent controls lose 500 attack and defense. And this effect applies even if this card leaves the field. So if you have this card and your opponent destroys it, it's already too late because the status has been changed. So generally this is the card that people run because the archetype really needs to start off with at least 2 Prank Kids in the hand, and then either a Poly or a Prank Kids spread. Prank Kids Pandemonium is the quick play fusion. Pretty simple, basically what it does. You use this to fusion summon a Prank Kids monster. It's a quick play, meaning it can be activated during either player's main phase. It locks you into Prank Kids, but generally that's okay because you won't be using this card. You'll be using this card during your opponent's turn. You won't be doing much special summoning. And usually what you're going to be using this spell is to get out this guy, Battle Butler, which I will talk about later. And I think it's generally a good card. It's mostly replaceable with Poly, but of course it's quick play, which means that you can activate during your opponent's turn, which is very good for what Battle Butler does. And then finally, this final spell, Prank Kids Pranks, is the continuous spell card. Basically, you can discard a Prank Kids card in your hand and then special summon a token. It's a Prank Kids monster. It doesn't have any attack. It is a level 1 Fire Pyro. And it cannot be used for tribute. However, you most likely be using this effect in order to go into your Link monsters, because all Link monsters require 2 Prank Kids monsters. As well, during your end phase, if this card's on the field, you can shuffle 3 Prank Kids monsters from your graveyard back into the deck, and then draw a card. So draw power and constant recovery, because Prank Kids send a lot of monsters to the graveyard due to all the special summoning that you'll be doing. So you'll have a lot of monsters in the graveyard and potential targets for this card's effect. The final main deck Prank Kids card we have is Prank Kids Plan, which basically is a trap that reads during the main phase. After this effect resolves, immediately link summon a Prankids monster from the extra deck using Prankids monsters that you control on the field. Also, it has a second effect that if it's in the graveyard and your opponent declares an attack, you're able to shuffle any number of Prankids cards in your graveyard back into the deck, and your opponent loses 100 attack. And that attacking monster loses 100 attack. Which is pretty cool, I guess. I think people will be using this for its getting out a link summon. You can either summon out Bella Barky is the most acceptable one, or getting out the big boss Ripper Roaster. So you can get out either of those. You can also use this if it's the GY. You can send it with Fansies, and then just use its effect in order to shuffle all the Prankids cards, because this deck can mill like all of the cards very fast, because you'll be summoning a lot and using Prankids as material for those summons. So generally good card. You can run it at 1 because it's very searchable, but I personally would like to run it at 2 if you're doing a pure variant. Moving on to the fusion monsters, you have 2 level 5 fusion monsters which have different attributes each. Prankids Rocket Ride is by far the most useful. They're level 5, so that they're insta-fusion targets, and they both have basically the same effect. Their initial effect is different. Basically, Prankids Rocket Ride can cut its attack points in half, being an 1,000 attack beater that can attack directly. Prankids Weather Washer basically activates, and whenever your Prankids monsters attack, your opponent cannot activate cards in your response to those attacks. So I guess basically turning your Prankids into ancient gear golems, but mostly you'll not be using it for that effect. You'll be using both these cards for the tributing effect. Rocket Ride basically can tribute itself during your main phase in order to special summon 2 non-fusion Prankid monsters from the graveyard, which is pretty cool, and basically enables you to recur all of your plays. Weather Washer is a bit slower, only being able to activate and tribute itself during your opponent's turn, but the special summon monsters cannot be destroyed by battle, which is good for setting up a prank wall. You know, pulling the classic pranks. And a second target for Prankid's Pandemonium if you don't have enough materials to go into Battle Butler. Speaking of which, here's Battle Butler. He's level 10 Wind Thunder monster. He is obviously a fusion. He has 3,000 attack and defense, and he has a quick effect. He must be fusion summoned and requires specifically Prankid's Dropsies, Lampsies, and Fansies. You know, the 3 that I mentioned. He has the effect that he can quick effect, tribute himself, and then destroy all monsters your opponent controls. Basically just a quick play Raigeki. He also has a second effect that if he's destroyed by an opponent's card, meaning by battle or card effect, he can special summon 1 monster from the graveyard. That's right, monster does not need to be a Prankid. As long as it's non-fusion, you get to special summon it to your side of the field, making it this archetype very splashable in its boss monsters. Honestly, just the big boss you'll be going for, and has the highest attack and most consistent ability. Moving on to the Link Summon monsters, we have 2 Link 2 monsters. We have Dodo Doodle Doo, sorry, people say that wrong all the time, so don't blame me, and Bow Wow Bark. Both of these are 2,000 attack Link 2 monsters that require 2 Prankids monsters in order to Link Summon. When Dodo Doo is Link Summoned, you get to add 1 Prankid spell, a trap card from your deck to your hand. So, once again, an example of a very searchable card, you know, getting the card that you need for your place. And it has a tribute effect that it can tribute itself in the extra. It can just tribute itself in order to target 2 Prankid's cards in the graveyard and add those cards to the hand. This is also once per turn effect. Bow Wow Bark basically has the same thing for the tribute effect, except when it uses this effect, it can only use it during your opponent's turn, and when it uses this effect, your opponents cannot... Prankid's monsters you control are unaffected by card effects. It also has an effect that gives a Prankid's monster, it points to 1,000 attack, which is cool if you have something like Battle Butler to make a 4K beater on your side of the field, but mostly you'll be using it for a second effect, being a very defensive way of going through these. And then the final monster we have is Ripper Roaster, which is a Water Aqua Link 4 monster with 3,000 attack. It must be Link Summoned and requires 2 or more Prankid's monsters. You can either use 4 normal Prankid monsters, or 1 of the Link 2s, and then 2 other Prankids. It basically has a quick effect that's able to tribute itself and then destroy all back row your opponent controls. That includes field spells, literally everything that's a spell and trap. It also has an effect that if it's destroyed by a card effect, you can target one card in your graveyard, except a link monster, and then add it to your hand. So, generally, I think it's an okay boss. I think that Battle Butler serves a better role, but there's always a place for Roaring Roaster, basically a gigantic Harpy's Feather Duster for free. You usually summoning this with Plan, so, you know, I guess that's good. Overall, I think the Prank Kids archetype is probably one of the coolest archetypes that came out in Hidden Summoners, and is what most people would consider the chase cards. You have a whole bunch of monsters that can go into extra deck very, very fast, but the problem is this deck focuses almost entirely on, you know, starting off with at least 2 Prank Kids and a Poly. If you don't start off with 2 Prank Kids, which by the way there's only 12 in the archetype, then you're basically screwed and have an instant brick. But once this deck does pop off, it has lots of recovery, constantly searches, and is definitely a pain in the butt for any deck that builds a board. Because Battle Butler can always come out and blow up everything, Roaring Roaster can blow everything away, and your back row basically ruin all your plans, you know. And, you know, Prank Kid monsters also have lots of synergy with other archetypes, very meta, like the previously mentioned Greasy Toads, as well as the Thunder Dragon monsters, which is why most people run this variant with Thunder Dragons. But overall, I think this archetype is really good. I'd give it a 4 out of 5 in meta relevance, much better than the Netvis archetype, definitely, but not by much. But it's mostly a fun deck to play, at like a 5 out of 5. Maybe 4.5 out of 5, I guess. Sorry, I'm changing my review about this a lot. But, you know, it's just such a fun deck to play, and it has such colorful characters. Anyways, it's been that Crazy Straw Guy. I hope you enjoyed this video, and tune in next time when maybe I'll actually fulfill a promise and do a mayakashi video. It's that Crazy Straw Guy. See ya!